Ladies and gentlemen, lady viewers and gentlemen viewers, good evening and welcome to our February edition of Orwell Today. Those who have followed our program know that the title of our show is a reflection of our intentions. That is to provide a slightly more objective, different point of view on the news that usually come from what has usually been called the Ministry of Truth, not usually, what can be called the Ministry of Truth, an Orwellian definition which describes the type of news which are filtered today by the corporate media or by the government or by those interests that have a specific interest themselves in giving a certain slant a spin or sometimes a totally different view of events. Now, I'm very, very pleased and honored this evening to have with me a guest who has been here before, Professor Zaher Wahab, whom I will introduce shortly. Professor Wahab is just back from Afghanistan, so he can give us a very accurate, direct perspective on life in Kabul, in this particular case, as well as on the situation that grieves that country, we could say that has been in a state of war, as you know, for almost 10 years now. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Zaher, if I may, and thank you. I'm very glad that you're here. I appreciate you participating in the show, and welcome again.
Thank you, Jimmie. I'm glad to be with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this country and the situation.
So, tell us, if I may, I know that you brought some pictures with us, which we'll be showing shortly, but give us, for the benefit of the viewers, a brief rundown of what have you done, how long you've been in Afghanistan this time, what have you seen, what is life on the street, as we say here, the typical life on the street. And have there been any changes? And then we'll go in questions regarding the political situation, the military situation. By the way, we'll put the telephone number up in a few minutes, and if viewers have interest in asking questions about Afghanistan or making comments, Bill is free to do so. So,
thank you again. Well, as you know, I have been going to Afghanistan every year for at least a semester, beginning with 2002. Last year, I spent 2 semesters there, one early in the spring and then late in the fall, because I was on a sabbatical. So I've gone every year, and earlier I was able to travel throughout the country, but the last 2 years or so it's becoming increasingly difficult to travel.
Inside the country?
In the country and even in Kabul itself. There have been some changes, so we can talk about the military situation, we can talk about the economic situation. For the last 2 years, I have been teaching in a master's degree program for teacher education faculty from throughout the country. There are 16 teacher training colleges, and we try to train the faculty. And then, of course, you drive around, you talk to people. I am fluent in both Pashto and Dari, which is to say I can talk to people about things. And they would talk to me,
Is there a great difference between these 2 languages?
Yes, they're very different. There's almost no comparison. Some of the alphabet is the same, the script is the same, but there are 2 different languages, and they're both national and official. Of course, there are many, many other languages too. Kabul is a very bizarre, a very strange place. It used to be a very small city with small streets, kind of quiet, exotic, peaceful, not so developed, but there was in the past there was no homelessness, no crime, very little crime, very few beggars. But now is a monstrous 4.5 to 5 million people living, partly because of the war which is going on throughout the country. A lot of people have been displaced, and many of the displaced but also come to Kabul. because it's safe, but also because half of the population is unemployed or underemployed. Many people come to Kabul because they think there are opportunities in Kabul. And there's a certain amount of reconstruction going on. There's trade and commerce. There's a very large, thousands of expatriate civilians, working for the UN or NGOs or private organizations. And then, of course, there's the very large military establishment. So Kabul has attracted all kinds of people for a variety of reasons. And so it has become a very difficult place. It's congested, it's polluted, it's filthy, it's unsafe, it's very, very chaotic, and there's a lot of violence. It's, political violence and random criminal violence in the city.
If I can interrupt you, you said you mentioned that people come to Kabul because they feel it's a safe place, but
Right.
based on what every now and then we hear from the newspaper or we read on the internet, to call it safe would be somewhat a euphemism. Am I correct?
That's right. You're right. In fact, Oxfam did a study about 2 months ago in many, many different provinces throughout the country, asking people to rank and list the difficulties facing the country. And people ranked poverty, unemployment, insecurity, violence, and foreign meddling by foreign countries and the war, in that order.
In that order.
Yes, of course, Kabul has been in the news just over the last few weeks, where the opposition stormed places and created mayhem and brought the city actually to a standstill. And the last encounter was very close to the palace and also 2 or 3 of the ministries, which is to say, in the 5-star hotel, the only 5-star hotel. Militarily, there's fighting going on all over the country now. It's not just the south or the southeast, the so-called Pashtun domination, but it's all over the country. It's north, south, east, west, and everywhere, and it's in the capital city itself too. Earlier in your introduction, you talked about news and analysis and reporting. One of the things about Afghanistan is that no foreigner is safe anywhere in Afghanistan right now. Whether you're a journalist or a military person or the UN person or an NGO worker or a volunteer, Westerners are not safe. And no one associated with the Afghan government is safe either. So there are a few journalists, of course, CNN or the New York Times and so forth, but there are 2 kinds of journalists. One would be the so-called embedded ones, which is to say they report what they are allowed to see. The second one is they stay in Kabul and then they would send their Afghan stringers to go and report on the fighting in Nangarhar or in Kandahar or in Zabul. And those people, of course, come back with filtered information. They filter the information, feed it into the international correspondence, and then they will wire it, or send it.
So there's double filter. So there's filter of the one in the field, and then there's a filter of the...
It's managed information, and I think it's a pity because I have a feeling that most Americans don't really know what exactly is going on in Afghanistan, militarily or economically or people's lives, or how we have wrecked the society almost entirely.
I think it is to be hoped that some people may have gained a perception of how the society has been wrecked. But I interrupt you here to something that came to mind that was